So what's that? Trump just signed an order that can save Steam. Okay. Well, that's
President
promising.
Trump just signed a new executive order, and it could be the biggest news for gamers you haven't heard yet. Games are being censored, not by Steam though, but by the banks that handle the money. This new executive order is the first legal step in stopping this. Recently, if you haven't heard, some games were removed from the Steam store, but this wasn't because of a bug or a developer's choice. Instead, it happened because a big payment company like MasterCard decided that a few games were a reputational risk. This is a vague rule that lets them pressure a company like Steam to remove any games they don't like. As a result,
I would be the first one. Like, let's say Visa. I think it was not Visa the first time that refused to be the vehicle for some purchases on Steam. If I was MasterCard, I was like, we allow any kind of purchase. Use MasterCard for whatever you want. Like, who cares what people buy with Visa? That doesn't like taint their image or anything at all. Like, I don't care if someone bought some weird shit with Visa. That's not my problem. I don't care. I don't see Visa as a bad company because of that. Like, why did they do that? It seems so weird to me.
banks that handle the money for Steam got involved, creating a chain of pressure that led to the games actually being removed. This is a big deal because it shows that a third-party company that handles the money, not the government or Steam itself, is now deciding what we can and can't buy. This kind of power is a form of digital censorship, and is especially concerning since a new rule was recently added to Steam's guidelines that gives them the power to remove content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by our payment processors. The thing is, the Steam situation is just one example of a much bigger problem. It's part of a growing trend of these payment companies censoring or even debanking anything they don't like. Debanking is when banks or payment companies close accounts or refuse to work with people and businesses for reasons that aren't actually about money. The censorship we're seeing on platforms like Steam is very similar to how banks debank people. The payment processors are essentially saying, if you don't remove this content, we will stop doing business with you, which means you can't get paid. This is a direct financial threat. It's what itch.io stated when they said they had to act urgently to protect the platform's core payment infrastructure. And also when Valve said if they didn't remove the games, it would prevent customers from buying games and content across Steam. The White House announcement calls this politicized or unlawful debanking, and highlights how some financial institutions have restricted access to services on the basis of political or religious beliefs or lawful business activities. So this isn't just about video games. Something similar has happened to cryptocurrency companies, legal gun stores, and even anime stores. The White House announcement points to other examples as well, such as when federal regulators suggested banks flag individuals who made transactions related to companies like Cabela's and Bass Pro Shop. These payment networks are essentially the roads of the digital economy. By controlling these roads, these companies can stop anyone they disagree with from doing business, even if they haven't broken any real laws. So to fight back against this, President Trump has signed a new executive order called Guaranteeing Fair Banking for All Americans. This is a direct response to what the president's office calls systemic abuses by financial institutions that undermine free expression and economic opportunity. This new rule tells federal groups that watch over banks to stop using vague reasons like reputational risk in their guidance and manuals. The order is specific, stating that regulators must remove the use of reputational risk or equivalent concepts that could result in politicized or unlawful debanking. From now on, banks must make their decisions based on clear financial reasons.
All of this seems weird to me. Like, why would a credit card company want to like remove customers from them? Like, isn't the point to make more money? Like, in my opinion, like if it was anything, I would have I think this would have caused that situation would be the government just going to those companies and say, like, we don't like this, but we don't have the power, or we would look stupid to tell the public that we decide that we cannot, that we don't allow that type of content. So they just go in secret to those companies and they're like, just remove this, just prevent the transaction for these games or something like that. For me, that's what makes sense. So what is the real reason? Who in the back is pressuring these companies to not to refuse transaction. Like, I'm sure this is not Visa or MasterCard. There is no way they're doing that of their own doing. There is no way.
The order also directs federal banking regulators to review banks for any past or current policies that encourage politicized or unlawful debanking and to take action, including charging a fine. The ultimate goal of this order, as stated by the White House, is to ensure that no American should be denied access to financial services because of their beliefs, affiliations, or political views. This is meant to prevent any financial unfair treatment and give fair access to banking for all legal businesses and people. So how does this new order connect directly to our problem on Steam? This is where the details of how payments work become really important. As Valve confirmed in their response, MasterCard didn't go directly to Valve and tell them to remove the games. MasterCard communicated with acquiring banks. These are the banks that handle the money for businesses like Steam. MasterCard cited one of its rules, Rule 5.12.7, which says that a business can't process transactions that may damage the goodwill of the corporation or reflect negatively on the marks. It's important to note that Visa has a very similar rule, just showing how this is a widespread issue across the payment industry. This is a perfect example of a vague reputational risk clause. MasterCard didn't have to prove the games were illegal, just that they were a risk to their brand. This was in response to a small number of complaints from the activist group Collective Shout. The acquiring banks, fearing that they would lose their partnership with a major payment network, then pressured Valve to remove the games. Valve complied, which is why they weren't fully debanked. So the executive order aims to stop this by forcing financial institutions to justify their decisions based on individual, objective, and risk-based analysis. The key difference is simple. Risk-based analysis is about measurable financial threats. Reputational risk is about feelings and public opinion. The new executive order is designed to stop financial companies from using the second one as an excuse to shut down legal businesses. This could protect game developers from being unfairly censored. So what can we expect?
Again, I think it still doesn't make sense. Like, maybe he's going to explain in like the last part of the video, but I still don't understand why they would try to shut down these companies. They still earn them more money. It's transaction, it's points, it's money flowing. They're earning money out of them. Why would they want to shut down any companies? They need to have pressure elsewhere.
Now, while this executive order is a major step, it has its limitations. Some might argue that it doesn't mean much because it can't directly regulate companies like MasterCard or Visa.
But then why is Trump signing something that makes that illegal? Like, I would feel that if anyone is behind this, it's Trump. Like, it's team, right? It's the government. Or it's Kamala, maybe. the Kamala's team. The liberals are at it again. But they're probably getting money from the big woke cabal. Yeah, maybe. That actually might be true. More than they can get from those games, yeah. Because it needs to come from somewhere. Because MasterCard and Visa are powerful. They're powerhouse. They're extremely rich. Like, there's not a lot of people that can threaten these companies. Like, they can say fuck you to a lot of people. they have a lot of power. Even against the government, they can do a lot of things. Because if Visa and MasterCard vanished, like in one day, like we would feel it. Like, a lot of people would have their credit card completely cut. We would not know where to buy things. Like, it would be very horrible for some people, especially when you have to rely on credit to pay certain things.
However, the executive order does create a powerful incentive for banks to stop caving to this type of pressure. If an acquiring bank knows that it could be fined by a federal regulator for acting on a reputational risk concern, it's far less likely to do so. This could make the vague rules of payment processors effectively powerless. According to Valve's newest statement, they were pressured by these banks, citing MasterCard's rule. So while Valve...
Okay, so the banks were pressuring... I still don't know why the banks did that, but at least I understand that now it was like the intermediate between Visa and the game. So they were literally trying to block the transaction. That makes sense. But then we have to understand why the banks were trying to prevent that. In their own way. Maybe there was like too many refund that they was losing money over that. I don't know.
formally debanked, they were put in a position where they had to choose between censorship and a massive financial threat. This is the exact thing this executive order is trying to stop. Looking forward though, this executive order could pave the way for more changes. We could see new legislation like the Fair Access to Banking Act gain momentum in Congress. This act, which has seen bipartisan support, aims to prevent banks from using subjective, non-financial standards when deciding who to do business with. A new law would have way more power than an executive order. It could directly and legally stop payment networks from denying service based on a business's legal activities or political views. The details of the bill are designed to force this change. For example, it would prevent banks from making decisions based on unfair and random standards, a legal way of saying a decision made without a good, clear reason. The bill requires banks to have a written, documented report showing a risk-based analysis for all decisions. This means they would have to back up their choices with clear, factual information, not vague concerns about their brand. This would be a more permanent solution, like treating these payment companies as essential services. So if the pressure from payment processors start to disappear, the new rule on Steam would become unnecessary and could pave the way for a return to a more hands-off content policy on the platform. So although the fight to stop censoring games is not over yet, there are some signs it might not last forever.
The thing is that they said they're not precise enough. So do you think what Visa and MasterCard will start doing is like attacking games specifically? Like this game attacks our... affects our mark negatively because of ba 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 ba, and they're gonna make like a whole document, release it. Next game, ba 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 ba, they're gonna do like 1,000 game or something like that, and they're gonna ban these games anyway. They could do that. They have the manpower, they have the money to do that. They can just pay an intern, like multiple intern, to do these papers with with attorneys and whatnot. I don't know, but probably not, because I don't think it's worth the hassle. But I think they could do this if they really wanted to be petty.